me, Eric, and Mark. We're missing Fred, Bhavna, and Ramaz, but we do have quorum, so
Okay.
we are live streaming.
Okay. I see that now. Okay. Fantastic. Welcome, everyone. It is 4:03 p.m. We will call this meeting to order. Once again, it is important that we acknowledge with respect that we are in the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory, and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawatang. And Bawatang is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Item 3 on our agenda is adoption of minutes. Could I have someone to move and to second the adoption of the minutes from our last meeting on May 12th? Thank you, Andre, to move, and to second, Pedro. Thank you very much. Any questions, concerns, changes on those minutes? All right, seeing none, all in favor, and be resolved that the minutes of the committee meeting of May 12th be approved. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Does anyone have a declaration of pecuniary interest from today's agenda? All right, seeing none, we now need to adopt the agenda for today. So looking for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of today's agenda. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jamie. Any additions, deletions, anything further on the agenda? Okay, seeing nothing, be it resolved that the agenda for today's Environmental Sustainability Committee meeting, June 9th, be presented as approved. As presented, be approved. All in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. We have next, item 6, we have an application for our Green Initiatives program. And I believe Salvatore, there he is. Marchese is here from the Downtown Association. Emily, could you take us through this item, please?
Yes, thanks. Welcome to the Environmental Sustainability Committee meeting, Salvatore. So the Downtown Association submitted an application for the Green Initiatives Fund. Specifically, this is a project that is looking, it's twofold. It's looking at distributing reusable bags to members, retail members of the Downtown Association, but it also will be giving a portion of the bags. They've requested funding for a total of 1,500 bags to give away at one of their block parties, specifically the August 11th block party. So they close down the street. Members of the community can come to that, frequent their retailers, and they're going to have a giveaway. So not only can their members benefit from this, but they can also give away reusable bags to the greater community. They've gone ahead actually and partnered with Clean North on this initiative as well to help increase community environmental education and also the breadth of the project. The bags will each include a 4x9 rack card with Clean North's top 7 tips on going green. They've created a draft of what these will entail. All of these come from their website, where they have a lot of great information for the community on how to be more environmentally sustainable with their lifestyle. They're going to be working with Salvatore to finesse the content and also the aesthetics of that, but they wanted to include a proof in the application. Needless to say, by distributing the bags, the project does align with the emissions reduction pillar because it will keep bags out of our landfill as well as away from our shorelines, so improving our water quality. And there will be tips in the giveaway as well regarding a greener lifestyle. So with that, they are asking, I'm just scrolling down here, for $4,542.43 for the project. Funding will go towards the purchase of the reusable bags, as well as the printing costs for the information rack cards and some social media advertising to inform people about the project once it's underway. So with that, I'll invite Salvatore to add anything he might like to the application. Anything else you'd like to speak to about the project, Salvatore?
I think you've summarized it pretty well, Emily, but it's something we're really looking forward to here as the association. We'd like to look at this, if successful, as a pilot project to maybe do in recurring years through other means. But we think this would be good for the community and a great initiative for the environment. And our beautification team is much in favor of some events like this, anything we can do to try to assist in the green initiative.
Great. So Donna, we can turn it over for any discussion or questions from the committee members. We can't hear you, Donna.
Sorry, anyone with questions for a start about the application? Not.
I have one
you.
question.
Go ahead, Jamie.
So not about the application itself, but I am curious about the type of what the new reusable bag is made of. How do you select kind of the raw materials or that material? What is it, like just a cotton bag, a linen bag? Where is it supplied from?
Just taking a look at the quote here. They received a quote from the SK Group, a local company that does mass printing of items. Salvatore, is there anything that you can speak to in that quote? I know it's a reusable tote bag, to my understanding.
Yes. So when speaking with SK Group, we informed them that this was a green initiative. I apologize, I don't know the exact content of the bag, but it is an environmentally friendly bag. So it is like a bag. It's not one that'll add to the waste. It's one that could be, or it's made from recyclable material.
Yeah, it looks like it's made from polypropylene here. So I don't know in terms like, isn't that like a oil-based, hydrocarbon-based product?
Well, we can always ask the company, who is the SK Group, for more information on something that is not polypropylene based.
Well, I don't have anything against polypropylene. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to market this as a green alternative, I think the benefit, it doesn't come from the life cycle of making this particular tote. It comes from like the one use previous bags, right? So this is just could be like a type of product that maybe isn't in the life cycle of emissions the greatest choice, but in terms of its reuse factor, better than the single use.
Good point.
So yeah, I don't know if SK Group or others could be maybe encouraged to see if there's some alternatives out there. But I think working with our suppliers in this way could help move the needle even further on sustainability. Just asking the question, right?
It's definitely something I think that SK Group could be asked about, Salvatore. The thing is, I think it would possibly increase the price because, if you're finding something that is like purely, non polypropylene based, or if it's made from like something recyclable, there might be a cost difference. So that would impact what the amount of funding that the Downtown Association is asking for.
Yeah, good point. And I'm not wanting to, I know we've got August 11th block party coming up, right? There's not a lot of time to have these ordered and have in place before this event. So I guess consideration for next year, if you're considering this a pilot project and this is what consumers are asking for, then maybe doing a bit more research on how to get even better if it were a sustainable item to begin with, right?
Good feedback for sure. And as Salvatore mentioned, this is their starting point. They'd like to expand this program. Can you speak to the expansion at all, Salvatore, what you see down the road? I know you haven't finessed the details yet, but what's your vision for the expansion of this program, volume-wise, different segments you're going to hit of your membership?
Yeah, so like the community in general really supports this idea. And our board even discussed it at our meeting last night, that they want to see this being something that we do further down the road. Like they'd like to see more bags, especially for the merchants, and to become commonplace basically. So there's already a plan in place to start get sponsors, fundraising, looking at grants to make this a recurring thing going down the road. We'd like to, our merchants have requested this, so we're trying to do what we can to make it a reality.
Another idea there, Salvatore, is in addition to providing bags that are not plastic, which will no longer be allowed in a few weeks, encouraging people to bring their own bag is also something that can be very effective in helping out with this challenge. So there's another thought. Anyone else with a question or questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Andre.
Salvatore, I'm sorry, I read through the application. Are you giving those bags away? Is there a value to them? Is there a price on them, or?
They're being given away. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I think my only concern with giving them away is to make sure that it's some people will tend to take it because people will have value. If is the individual merchants going to give them away, or you have a day where people just take bags? When things are free, when we give things to people, sometimes they basically don't use them as we intended, or they just take it because it's free, I'm just wondering about because those bags are sold by grocery stores, etc., and they charge for plastic bags. So I don't know if there would be a consideration to add a small, even if it was like $2 or something. What that does, as far as I know how people behave, it prevents people from being people and taking stuff because it's free when they're not going to put the value to it. I don't know. I may be wrong on that, but I just know that we've done stuff in the past for the bicycle workshop, and because it's free, people just take it when they don't really going to use it the way we actually intended it to be used. So they take it home and do other things with it, or whatever. Just wondering if you had a thought about that.
Yeah, so the intention is for the bags that are with the merchants, that whatever they're purchasing would then go in those bags. So in terms of acquiring a bag, it would require a purchase at that store.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to add on it as well, like this is a bag that, a merchant, or not a merchant, rather a person who's purchasing items with will most likely use at other areas around town. And it will encourage more shopping to the downtown area as well, because their logo will be on the bag.
Anyone else with questions? And if no questions, anyone with comments?
Yeah, I wanted to, I guess, weigh in here as somebody who's, I don't know if I'd want to admit it or not, but given away a few thousand of these types of bags in the past and with different programs. I find the bags that they're mentioning tend to last longer. We have purchased and given away the recycled or the different types of bags that don't tend to actually last. I have some of these bags that they're mentioning here that are probably about 4 or 5 years old, that we still use today with grocery shopping. So there's a bit of a trade-off back and forth. Is yes, the bags mentioned are not the most, some of them claim to be environmentally friendly, but the processes and how they're made up are not, what we would consider recyclable or made of recycled materials and things like that. But there's definitely that trade-off that they do tend to last quite a bit longer. And I've got some that are well older than that are still going, that we still use today. So I think there's some trade-offs there if we go, and the environmentally, or the recycled ones, or the ones that are more environmental friendly, are significantly more expensive in terms of costs. So there's some trade-offs.
Thanks, Mark. I guess I did kind of skip over, so I assumed, perhaps incorrectly, but there are no other questions. So technically, if there are no other questions, now we're discussing, I guess, if you will, which is part of comments. So anyone want to add any other points of consideration or for discussion?
I just want to ask, so based on this discussion, I'm wondering if Salvatore is amenable to an amendment, or to look into this more deeply about these trade-offs and other potential, using other materials, looking for other types of bags. Is that at all possible for the project?
It'll have to come down to a vote eventually, essentially, from the committee.
Yes, indeed. But I think Salvatore, without making any commitments necessarily, could say, yes, he would be willing to do that, or no, the time isn't available this year, or whatever. However, whatever he feels comfortable with in terms of answering Pedro's question.
In terms of Pedro's question, the only consideration would be the ability to distribute them at one of our events. I mean, it's possible our next large event in the downtown wouldn't be Moonlight Magic till November. So that, I mean, is a possibility we could discuss, but just in terms of hitting the August deadline, that's where it would have to be decided.
Do you have other questions or comments, Pedro?
No, it's okay. You know, for August, I understand it's not possible, but maybe something is possible for November, as long as they're willing to, you know, think about this. This is an interesting opportunity to think about, you know, these kinds of things as a community. So that's all. But that's just good discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
I have no concerns.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to add a comment? Seeing none. Bhavna, thank you for joining us. We're just discussing the reusable bag giveaway. That is the application to the Green Initiatives program by the Downtown Association. Do you have any questions or comments with regards to that application? I'm not seeing anything. Okay. So if there's nothing further, then we will, now Emily prepared me very well here. Hold on while I find, yes, here it is. So I need someone to move and then someone to second the motion, which would be to be resolved that the Environmental Sustainability Committee supports the request for funding from the CDF Green Initiative stream in the amount of $4,542.43 at the upper, it does not say this, but that is at the upper limit for the Downtown Association's Downtown Bag and Green Tips project, and recommends that council approve the request. So do I have someone who would move that motion? Thank you, Pedro. And could I have someone to second? Andre, thank you, Andre. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Salvatore.
Okay, I'll show you.
Thank you, everyone. I assume I can be excused at this time.
Well, unless you want to hang out with us, you don't have to leave, but you certainly.
I might listen for a little bit, then I'll just turn my camera off.
Completely up to you. Thank you.
Okay. So,
Hi, Bhavna.
hi there. Oh, can they hear me?
Yes,
Hi
we
there.
can, yes.
Sorry, it
We
seems
can,
like my mic is on.
no, Bhavna, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, great.
All right, moving on, agenda item number 7, which is the Environmental Sustainability Committee project priorities work group. And we're going to hear about the firstly, we're going to hear about the active transportation web page draft review. Emily, who's going to discuss, who's going to lead this?
Pedro, would you like to? I'm happy to do it if you don't have the notes.
I don't have the notes here, Emily, so
Okay.
can you please
Oh,
go ahead? Thank you.
I'll go ahead. So the working group met in May to discuss the top 3 priority projects. As a reminder, one pertains to active transportation, the other is the stormwater management project, and the third was discussing the addition, well, not discussing, creating the content for adding another pillar to the Green Initiatives Fund. So for project number 1, this was to start an annual active transportation commute survey campaign to better determine and promote uptake year round. So we have created an outline, or rather a template, if you will, with sections and content to improve the city's current active transportation webpage. It's going to include a benefits section with the health, environmental, including tie-in to the greenhouse gas reduction plan, as well as economic benefits. Other pillars of this page are going to include a getting started section. So it'll look at different types of active transportation, choosing a bike, cycling equipment, bike clothing, like what to wear. There'll also be safety, so where to bike, legal places to bike, as well as the public transit bike racks, promotion of those. It'll also include a series of bike resources, so shops, links to the Sioux Cycling Club, their event page, etc. We also want to include a testimonial section for this, just some feedback from local active transportation passionate folks here in Sault Ste. Marie. So we will be creating a survey to send out to the community, and hopefully also be getting some headshots. So if anybody knows of any passionate active transportation enthusiasts, I know of a couple myself, please pass them along. When the webpage draft is updated, we're going to share it with the committee for feedback. So bear with us as we get cracking on that. Also, a couple of active transportation projects were pitched to City Studio, which, just as a reminder for those who may not be aware, is a partnership between the city and Algoma University for students to participate in projects and really move them forward that are on the city's plate. They get experience from it. We also get help getting some projects done. So they're going to look at a youth active transportation corridor identification project, also possibly looking at hub trail signage improvement, and looking at creating like a trail map for the community. So those projects are still being finessed. Their coordinator needs to find students and professors who are willing to take them on, but we have expressed very keen interest from the city to pursue that. So I think there's a strong chance that they'll be picked up, and we'll know more once we get closer to the fall 2022 semester. So that's really the update on that project. I'll maybe pause here and ask if there's any questions or comments from the committee on that one.
Anyone with questions or go ahead, Andre.
I certainly know a lot of active transportation cyclists who are commuter. I don't like to use the word hardcore, but committed perhaps is a better word, who commute by bicycle as year round as a primary mode of transportation. I'm one of those, but so yeah, for sure, if that's helpful. Also, I think when we look at the challenges and the barriers, in my presentation last week or last month was the fact that this active transportation, improving the numbers, modal shifts, as I call it, there seems to be a lot of things that I've done, but effectiveness seems to have economic motivators to them. And I hope that the points that I made during my presentation are taken in consideration, because a lot of things that are being proposed have been done many times before and really don't make much of a difference. So I would just really like our energies to be spent on evidence-based, effective efforts, if you wish, to accomplish our goals, to have a modal shift in transportation. And on that note, I just want to applaud Surrey Hospital, because what they did is evidence-based by providing secure indoor bike storage, and it would be so nice to see the City Hall do the same thing. Anyways, that's just my comment on that, and
Thanks, Andre. Anyone? Oh, we lost him temporarily. Anyone else with comments or questions about that that particular initiative that the Project Priorities work group has undertaken? Okay, seeing none. Shall we move on, Emily, to 7.2, the Green Initiatives Fund revisions? You have some suggestions on expanding the criteria, I believe.
Yeah, I'll just wrap up quickly on the second project that we're undertaking as the working group priority. That's the stormwater. Nothing really big to report on that one, except at the last meeting, it was approved that by the committee to approve an application from the city, from the manager of recreation and culture, to move forward on a storm catch painting project for 12 catch basins, 6 within the downtown core, and then 6 scattered around academic institutions, so Sioux College, Algoma University, as well as some of the local high schools. So that is going to council for final approval on June 13th. And pending their approval, we'll be working with the manager of recreation and culture to get that done over the summer. So that'll be an exciting project if it gets approval, to really see something tangible and hopefully help bring more awareness about stormwater pollution. So with that, the next point, that is the third priority that the committee identified in our ranking exercise earlier this year, was to add a pillar to the Green Initiatives Fund that allows for project applications that encourage healthy and resilient ecosystems, including habitat restoration. So you will see in your agenda package that the revised terms of reference were provided. Specifically, the changes were denoted in red font. We did discuss at our working group meeting as well, because we are in the process of amending the terms of reference of the fund, we considered there to be value in actually adding an additional 2 pillars beyond just the healthy and resilient ecosystems, specifically one related to active transportation and also waste reduction. So though these tie already into the greenhouse gas emissions reduction pillar of the fund, what has been noticed specifically when it comes to outreach for applicants for the Green Initiatives Fund is there's been a little bit of confusion on what that would be. So we've gone ahead and done some defining to, what the existing pillars, like examples of projects. We didn't want to narrow it down too much, but it could be helpful for future applicants to get an idea, if it's a term that maybe they're not familiar with. So we've gone and added some definitions to the 3 existing pillars, but also broken it down into the other 2, active transportation and waste reduction. So those are for your consideration as well. If anyone has any feedback regarding what has been entailed, I know we could have, elaborated much more on all of them, but we did want to keep it open as well so that people could come to us for funding with their ideas as well. So essentially it's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We're amending this, it's got to go to council, et cetera. And, I think by adding more understanding and definition to the fund, we might see an increase in applications as well. So that's the update on that.
Anyone with questions or comments for Emily about, now are we, I believe, I need to check here. I believe that this, yes, so there is a motion here that where we would formally request to add the 3 new pillars and that council would approve the request. So perhaps I should ask for a mover and seconder for the motion in the first place before we have discussion. Anyone? Thank you, Pedro. And we do need someone to second that motion.
Sorry, Donna, can I just clarify something here? So,
Of course. Yeah.
like I know we want to move and second the addition of these 3 pillars, but I just want more clarity on the active transportation, an example of a project that would fit in that category. So do we move it first?
Yes, so proper procedure is that the motion gets on the table and we need a mover and seconder to do that. And then we can have discussion.
Okay, well then I will second it.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, questions or comments about adding these 3 new pillars? Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, so as I said already, active transportation, that's an interesting one. So I know that city departments can apply under this fund for funds. So are we saying that if we wanted to, let's say, pave a new bike lane on a busy street or something like that to promote active transportation or facilitate it, would that be a type of project that a city department could apply for funds to do?
That's where I'm a little foggy on, Jamie. Like I'd have to get some more clarification. The push for the fund has been to the external community. So, mainly nonprofit organizations that can have, a greater impact, partnerships with other organizations. The city has a budget for things like that already. So this is for things that I think are above and beyond their kind of business operations. But I'd have to clarify that kind of a project specifically, and the fund is very limited, like a big paving project, it's not that big of a pot, right? So, I can clarify. I agree. Sorry, go ahead.
It's not a big pot that we have every year, right? To divvy up with these applications. And as word gets out, I think more and more people will come back to the table and it'll kind of, snowball from there. But for this pillar in here, I'm not understanding really well what we would support or what would come to the table. And maybe Andre, I know I missed the presentation that you gave last month, but maybe there's an example you can think of that I'm not thinking of here of a type of not-for-profit organization that would come to the table with an active transportation project. Or Eric, I know you're part of this working group.
Sorry,
so I'll let them go. Okay, sure.
ask too, would something like what the hospital did for locked bike storage, if somebody came to us with something along the hub trail, a business along the hub trail came to us and said, we'd like to put in locked bike storage at our business to promote people to riding to work, to and from work, would that be something that would support or be under the active transportation pillar?
So a business could not apply because it's only open to nonprofits and city departments. But if the project could result in less motor vehicle traffic on our roads and increase the use of active transportation, and a project were applied for by a nonprofit, perhaps in partnership with some other organizations in the community, but also a city department could apply for that as well per the terms of the fund. It's just when we look at the scoring, we're typically looking at community impact. There's also that partnership piece as well. And as I said, city departments have budgets for certain things like road maintenance, etc. already. So I guess they could apply realistically, but they'd have to explain, the impact to the community in their application. But the only people who can apply would be a city department or a nonprofit, not a local business, as the current terms of reference stand.
Can I make a comment? Particularly to the active transportation file. First, I believe that the most impact that the things that actually will have an impact are not necessarily things that cost money, but they are basically the way, particularly with the presentation that I made, administrative things, like, for example, what would it take for the city to have parking reforms? What would it take for the city to create a program where they would, because parking and paying for parking is very effective to encourage active transportation.
Andre, I'm gonna stop you there if that's okay, because I don't, like, what we're talking about now is not about your very, very, and I'm your very important messaging about parking. But right now, what we're talking about is adding, do we want to add these particular pillars? And I think Jamie brings up a very good point, relevant to what the city could or couldn't apply for, et cetera. As Emily said, these types of projects are typically budgeted as part of capital transportation plans and so on. But we want to discuss.
No, can I finish my
We got
thought?
a bit ahead of ourselves, I'm not sure, but we want to discuss, should we even, the committee can give some direction, which could be to take this back, and maybe we do a little bit more work on the idea on the active transportation side, right? Like we should think about whether this should be included, these pillars, or not, or if we want to send Emily back and say, hey, let's do a little more work on this and be able to describe more clearly what this could look like, or a couple of examples that might be helpful to address people's concerns.
Can I finish my thought? Then maybe
Yes.
you, okay. What I was going with this was, is there money available to make bring some experts in for a roundtable or whatever, a conference of some sort, to help people, educate people and inform people about best practice and things that have been done other places, and whether or not that fits into these pillars? That's where I was going with this.
So the active transportation master plan is underway. I forgot to mention that in the update regarding the active transportation project. They've had their kickoff, and a consultation by the subject matter expert consultants who've been hired by the city to do this plan will be part of it. So we will have an opportunity to meet with them. I've proposed that they come into one of our meetings, one of our monthly meetings, for a segment to discuss these ideas as part of their consultations for the development of that plan. A study of some kind from this fund is a good question, and I think that I have to probably discuss here with the other staff at the city. So it bodes well to your comment, Donna, about taking this back and coming back with some clearer answers for the committee, in my opinion.
How's everybody feeling now? So are there any additional comments or questions with regards to this?
Sure, I'll just make a quick comment. The kind of projects that I kind of see falling under that, like, to me, it's obvious that we want to add a pillar that could address active transportation in some way. The kind of projects that I see, I mean, I'm sure there'll be ideas that we didn't think of that will come up, but a lot of what we've seen already applied to the Green Initiatives Fund is there's been a few sort of like community outreach kind of event things to raise awareness on the issue. I could see that being the kind of thing that might be applied for through that pillar. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I could imagine something along that line being what would align with that pillar. Just a thought.
Go ahead, Pedro.
So could one of for example, a project for this pillar be something like Andre was proposing, not for profit? So it has to be either a department, that's my understanding, right? A city department or a not for profit would apply to bring in experts for a conference on best practices of on active transportation. So this would fit perfectly with this pillar, or am I correct?
I
here
think
as
the
an
out,
example?
I think we need to have an idea on what the anticipated output of that kind of a conference would be. Like, you know, is it expected that, you know, attendees will take something? I mean, of course, they'll take knowledge with them, which is important, but like, probably how do we measure the impact of something like that? Like when I think back to, you know, some of our applications that we've had already, like, you know, there's been a clear indication. So it would depend on, you know, the impact of that. Like, is there an expectation that through this, you know, perhaps maybe there'll be like, you know, a helmet or something, or bike locks, maybe that will encourage people to feel safer when they're going out and using their bicycles if they've already got one. So I think it would depend on, you know, if we can quantify the impacts to a degree as well.
Yeah, the onus is on the applicant to explain that through the application process that we already have. So,
Yep.
so I think that's already embedded.
Yep, that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And within our workplace, we've had events that would address this, where, you know, there's sort of like challenges where, you know, the employee that logs the most time on their bike or whatever in a couple months or in a month would receive some kind of prize. That would be something I think that would be fundable and a tangible, measurable outcome.
That's true. There's actually an initiative called Commuter Challenge. Maybe that's what your workplace has used, Eric. And I know other organizations and even municipalities have participated in that during the National Bike to Work Week, which I believe is typically the first week of June, something like that. So yeah, I think something like that would be great, because then they'd be able to track progress as well, right?
Okay, so what are we thinking now? Do we want to have Emily take this back and do some more thinking and talking with the team at the city about how this could better fit, and come back to us for the July meeting with a more defined criteria perhaps? Or what's the what are you thinking? Hold on. The motion as it's currently written says support the request to add 3 new pillars: green initiatives program, healthy and resilient ecosystems, active transportation, and waste reduction would be the 3. So we can choose.
I can chime in.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I think I started this all off, but really good discussion. I appreciate it. I'm a lot more clear now on active transportation, the type of different ideas. Hopefully we do get a not-for-profit come to the table and try to do a community-based challenge or something like that. I think what we're trying to do here is build that sustainability mindset amongst all of our community members, right? And I think that this certainly helps and supports that. So I'm comfortable to move forward with the motion as it stands, personally.
Okay. Anyone else? Before we, all right, so we did have a mover and a seconder. So if I'm seeing no further comments, we can, so I'll just read it one more time. Resolve that we support the request to add 3 new pillars to the fund, green initiatives program, healthy and resilient ecosystems, active transportation, and waste reduction. And we recommend that council approve this request. So all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a discussion about buildings and net zero. And Emily has some slides here to share with us on green development in general, and then certainly looking for some robust discussion here from all of you on this particular item and how we might proceed to, you know, build this into our community in whatever ways we should. So Emily, go ahead.
Okay, so I have some slides to start the conversation that were shared in the agenda package. Dawn, I know there is a motion as well, but I'll do my presentation first and then we'll go from there.
Oh goodness, I have too many files open here. Wait 1 second, just wait 1 second.
Yep.
So yeah, I think you should do your presentation and then
Okay.
I'll read the motion and then we can go from there for the discussion and the questions. Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, so just going to go over a couple of things. Now, this is something that we've talked about when we were brainstorming. We had the planning department come up and talk about, buildings, et cetera, but it's something that has come up and I felt now was a good time to bring it back up again onto the agenda. So just going to go over some information about green development and buildings just to get the conversation started. So many municipalities are developing green development standards to provide direction to developers and builders in minimizing greenhouse gas emissions. This also ties back into the GHG reduction plan, which has some KPIs that relate to how many retrofits are completed here in the Soo, the number of new homes that are built above the Ontario Building Code, as well as the development of a green building policy. Buildings across Canada account for approximately 13% of our national GHG emissions, so there's definitely room to chisel that away here. This is a very challenging area to decarbonize because there's a bit of a lack of building code harmonization, high cost of retrofits coupled with labor shortages of skilled tradespeople to perform the work. And climate change is going to place increased pressure on growing municipalities, which will reinforce the importance of having emissions reduction from our built environment. But there's an opportunity here. So new construction projects present the best opportunity to address climate change by achieving zero carbon performance and also creating low carbon building stock for future generations. Net zero energy buildings produce as much clean energy as they consume. They're actually up to 80% more energy efficient than a typical new building, and they use on-site or near-site renewable energy systems to produce the remaining energy that they need. New buildings can be designed for optimal efficiency and resilience, and they can readily integrate renewable energy generation, select technologies that avoid the use of fossil fuels. The city could also incorporate this into its planning for both new construction as well as renovations as part of its net zero target, again, tying back to the GHG reduction plan. The city has an opportunity here to celebrate an early win and be a leader with the adoption of net zero energy ready building policies or standards to prevent more costly upgrades and retrofits in the future. Also tying it back to the 2022 federal budget, where there was an announcement of $150 million over 5 years towards a Canada Green Building Strategy to speed up the development and adoption of performance-based building codes, promote lower carbon construction materials, and to improve climate resilience of existing buildings. So just to wrap up here, a couple of examples from other communities that are making some progress on the green development front. Toronto has their green standard, which came into effect in 2010, and it's a two-tier set of performance measures supporting guidelines for new development. Its purpose is to promote sustainable site and building designs that address their urban environment pressures, so air quality, climate change, energy efficiency, water quality, efficiency, ecology, and solid waste. And the Toronto Green Standard sets the official plan's vision of sustainability into action. So it's a key strategy to achieving their climate change action plan. They have an aggressive framework that's looking at reducing their emissions by 80% by 2050. And achieving this standard performance measures will help them meet their goal while building a greener and sustainable city. Other examples include the cities of Vaughan, Brampton, and Richmond Hill, who've actually worked collaboratively in 2008 to develop a set of sustainability metrics as a tool to achieve healthy and complete sustainable cities. As well, in 2010, the town of Halton Hills developed a voluntary green development evaluation checklist, which later became mandatory for a set of new developments. So these slides are included in your agenda package. I just wanted to share them for some discussion before we dive into a chat here. So that's all I had for that, Donna. Sorry, we can't hear you again.
Yes, on, off. Okay. So the motion that we have in front of us and for which we would need a mover and a seconder is be it resolved that the Environmental Sustainability Committee supports the need for a net zero building strategy and recommends that council request that staff report back with a roadmap for this in Sault Ste. Marie. So anyone who would like to move that motion? Thank you, Mark, and Jamie will second. All right, so discussion. Who wants to share their thoughts on this idea? I know a couple of you know a lot about this, but anybody want to jump in first?
Sure. Can I make two comments?
Sure.
I am in the process of building a house, and I took a course on hempcrete. And what happened as a result of that is the challenge is that it's, first of all, it's very difficult to get, and then it takes, so there's a barriers there. So I'm looking at other alternatives. So on the premise of building buildings that are green and net zero if possible. My other comment is also we have to look at a bigger picture too. Is if we are adding buildings, more housing, commercial buildings, etc., we also have to think about are we increasing the size of the city by, or are we increasing policies that would encourage densification as opposed to sprawl, which I think is a big problem in Sault Ste. Marie. So that's my comment.
I think that I know that the proposed draft new official plan is very supportive of density versus sprawl, and there's specific recommendations in there with regards to that. And I think that correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, but these ideas are around how the city should be building their buildings or retrofitting their buildings or things like that as we go forward, but then also how we would either demand or advise or guide with other folks who are building either commercial or residential properties.
Correct.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks, Andre. Who would like to go next? Share your thoughts.
I can jump in.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, I think, I love the idea of having a roadmap presented back to the committee. I think that it's important to start early on something like this as we build capacity and the resources, to Andre's point, to be able to support a future where net zero energy ready buildings are a requirement under a federal and hopefully harmonized building code going forward, right? So if we understand better what our needs are, and where our barriers are, we can start to put the building blocks in place and access the right funding and really build our capacity in our community. So very supportive of this, very excited to see this tabled.
Thanks, Jamie. Anyone else? Eric or Mark, Pedro, Bhavna? It's kind of like, why wouldn't
I was,
go ahead.
I don't have too much to say. I mean, obviously I'm supportive of this, and I think it's been talked about for a while. So it's good to see that, where there's push from other groups and things like that, we can push to the city to to start this roadmap and start planning it, because I think it's something required, and we can't rely on outside sources to lead this. So it's good that we can try and do something internally.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Anyone else? Okay, so once again, resolve that the ESC supports the need for a net zero building strategy and recommends that council request that staff report back with a roadmap for this in Sault Ste. Marie. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Emily, you have your staff report.
Yep. Okay. So a couple of updates for the committee. Really excited to announce that we are actually moving forward with our community retrofit feasibility study. So we're in the process of finalizing the details to go to tender for that. But that's an exciting project that we're happy to see moving forward. I also thought I'd take an opportunity to just give a bit of a snapshot. It might be a little bit small on your screens, but it is included in the agenda package of where we're at from a corporate retrofit standpoint. Some of these numbers are constantly changing, specifically the 21 projects underway for the small business lighting. But at the time that we sent out the agenda package, this is where we were at. So in total, we have over 20 retrofits on the go. The Northern Community Center LED upgrade wrapped up recently, and the John Rose is complete. We're just finalizing the details on the documentation to get it submitted for the incentive. Lots of work underway at many of the small city facilities that, parks, smaller outbuildings, et cetera, even out at our landfill, the landfill admin, the scale house, Bellevue Marina. Lots of little facilities are getting LED lighting upgrades, which is just great to see. That will offer us some excellent cost savings and also reduce our energy consumption as well. Big project, another project that is hopefully moving forward will be looking at recommissioning our ice plant at the GFL. This project is still pending, but it's something that we're looking at that offers decent energy reduction as well as annual savings. The big one that's underway now that is going to be really great to see that we talked about last year, the committee provided guidance for funding from the Green Initiatives Fund, is the John Rhodes Heat Recovery Project. So that project is underway, looks at possibly reducing the overall building fuel consumption by 22.2%. And it is also eligible for an incentive from Enbridge Gas, which is just an estimate right now, but we're working with them on that one. So lots of projects underway. Really great to see the needle moving forward. And of course, it aligns to the energy efficiency pillar in the greenhouse gas reduction plan. Another item that is actually underway and is currently being wrapped up is the review of the city's official plan through Climate Lens. That actually took place last week and is being wrapped up. Some really good insights were brought forward. So that is currently underway. And last but not least, we are working on submitting our provincial energy and emissions reporting, which is due July 1st for all broader public sector organizations. So we're really able to streamline the energy tracking process for all of the city of accounts. There are a lot of them. So I know I've said this before, but thank you to the PUC for your help on that. That was extremely useful. Enbridge, not so much, but you know what? We've only got, I think, maybe 40, so that's all right. Yeah, I think that's about it. Happy to maybe answer any questions before we move to the shared resources, if there are any.
Anyone with questions for Emily about those items? Okay, I don't see any. Go ahead, Em.
So last but not least, we've got some really great resources to share with the committee as well as anybody watching at home. Thank you to the members who passed them along. They're truly, truly inspiring and very interesting. So keep it up. And with that, I'll wrap up my staff update. Next meeting is July 14th. Jamie will be doing her spotlight on her work at PwC. And I'll also just put out a reminder for anyone who's interested, please pass along your shared resources. Or if you're interested in being our August spotlight, please let me know. That's it for me.
Okay. Can you unshare your screen, Emily, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. So any further questions or any other business before we adjourn for today? I do not see any. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I do need a motion to adjourn, so looking for a mover and a seconder to adjourn this meeting. I don't usually that's the easiest thing to have happen, right? Because everybody's like, adjourn, adjourn. Okay. So I see Jamie to move. And I do need as a thank you, Pedro. All right. Thank you so much for your time and your experience and your knowledge. And together, I know we're doing good things. And I appreciate your time. Take care. We'll see you July 14th. Ciao.